All right, so today let's take a deep dive into this article you sent me about TATANKA, this organization that is helping to empower transgender artists.
Absolutely.
And I gotta say, I was reading through this beforehand, and I found it so interesting.
Oh, it's a fascinating case study,
Really is.
especially when you consider all the systemic issues that they face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about =𝗓𝗓,
Yeah.
the artist who is mentioned in the article, and all the things that she's had to overcome.
Right.
You know, the rejection from her own community.
Yeah.
The pressures of, working in the adult entertainment industry.
Um,
And even her mental health was impacted
right.
by discrimination.
yeah. 𝗓𝗓's story is so powerful.
Yeah.
It really shines a light on the reality
Yeah.
for so many transgender entertainers.
Yeah.
It's not just about like individual prejudice.
Right.
It's these like deep-seated biases that are just baked into
Yeah.
like whole industries.
Totally. And it even seems like the most basic things.
Yeah. Like just being accepted socially
Oh, yeah.
and being seen for your art and not,
Yeah.
through stereotypes
Absolutely.
can be a struggle.
Imagine constantly being like reduced to these cliches or fetishized instead of people actually seeing you for,
Right.
the talent and the creativity.
Yeah.
That takes a huge toll on people.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you have the workplace itself.
Yeah,
The article mentions how much discrimination happens there,
absolutely.
leading to, limited opportunities, unfair pay, and even harassment.
Yeah, it's really disheartening.
Yeah.
And sadly, the issues don't just stop there.
Right.
The article really emphasizes these heightened safety risks.
Oh, yeah.
For a lot of these transgender entertainers,
Right.
especially women of color,
Yeah.
they are statistically more likely
Yeah.
to be victims of violence and hate crimes.
Right.
Yet, the industry just doesn't provide enough protection.
Doesn't do enough to
Yeah.
to keep them safe.
Yeah, that's really troubling. And I think what's interesting is, the article also mentions this economic vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a lot of transgender artists have,
Right.
limited opportunities outside of the arts.
Right.
So it's this cycle of instability.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
I mean, this kind of financial pressure just makes it so much harder
Yeah.
to prioritize anything else.
Yeah.
Like healthcare, for example.
Especially with the discrimination in the healthcare system on top of it.
Oh, exactly. It's another hurdle.
Yeah.
And accessing gender-affirming care,
Right.
mental health support,
Right.
it becomes a major challenge.
It just seems like layer upon layer of hardship here.
Absolutely.
Social stigma, workplace discrimination, safety risks,
Yeah.
economic instability, and then barriers to health care.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bleak picture.
It is.
But that's what makes TATANKA's work
yes.
so interesting and so important.
Because they're not shying away from these issues.
Yeah.
They are tackling them head on.
Yeah, they're really trying to create this ecosystem of support.
Right. It's not just about providing a platform.
Right.
It's recognizing that these are systemic problems.
Yes.
And trying to dismantle them.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit.
Yeah.
What does this ecosystem actually look like?
Right.
The article mentions building a safe and inclusive community.
Yeah. And they're not just paying lip service to that idea.
Right.
We're talking about a zero-tolerance policy for any kind of discrimination or harassment.
Yeah.
That sends a very clear message.
But a policy is just words on a page, right? How do they actually make sure that there is that inclusion and respect?
Well, they invest in education and awareness programs,
Okay.
which helps members and audiences alike understand,
Yeah.
the nuances of being transgender
Right.
and their experiences.
Okay.
So it's about fostering empathy and allyship
Right.
rather than just enforcing the rules.
So it's about actually shifting attitudes and behaviors, which is, no small feat.
Right.
It's a big undertaking.
Yeah.
But they don't stop at creating a safe space within the organization.
Right.
They're also looking at the bigger picture of workplace protections.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And this is where their work gets really granular.
Okay.
Because we're talking about industries with
Yeah.
a long history of exploitative practices,
Right.
particularly towards marginalized groups.
So how do they actually ensure that transgender artists are treated fairly in these environments?
Yeah.
I'm really curious about that.
Well, they start by making sure that their members know their rights.
Okay.
It's easy to just assume that everybody understands legal protections. But a lot of transgender artists are either unaware or they're just afraid to speak up
Right.
because they're worried about retaliation.
So it's about giving them the tools
Yeah.
to advocate for themselves.
Absolutely. TATANKA provides access to legal resources and support, which can be so crucial in navigating those tricky situations.
Yeah.
But they also go beyond that and address it more proactively.
And you're talking about the contracts.
Yeah, the contracts,
Yeah.
exactly. This is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because remember, we're talking about industries that haven't always been known for their,
Right.
ethical practices.
Yeah.
TATANKA insists that their contracts include clauses
Okay.
that really prioritize things like fair compensation,
Yeah.
safety, and consent.
It's really cool to see that they're actually putting it into the contracts, having those protections.
Right.
Because we know that that's not always the case.
Exactly. It's about setting a new standard
Yeah.
and demanding that transgender artists are treated with respect, paid fairly,
Yeah.
and given a safe working environment.
It seems like they're really trying to shift
Yeah.
the power dynamics.
Yeah, it's about giving these artists more control over their careers,
Yeah.
but it goes beyond just the legal and professional aspects.
Yeah.
They also recognize the importance of health and well-being.
Which we know is a huge challenge.
Right. The article really touched on the healthcare challenges
Yeah.
that transgender people face.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about access.
Right.
It's that a lot of transgender individuals experience so much stigma
Yeah.
and discrimination even within the healthcare system.
Yeah.
And that can be so discouraging
Yeah.
that it makes people not even want to seek care at all.
So how does TATANKA help its members overcome these obstacles?
Well, they have partnerships with healthcare providers who are both knowledgeable and sensitive to the needs of transgender people.
Yeah.
So this ensures that members can access
Yeah.
high-quality care, including things like hormone replacement therapy, surgeries, mental health services.
Wow. So they really are trying to cover everything.
Yeah, it's about a more holistic approach to well-being.
Yeah.
But remember how we talked about 𝗑𝗕ᗕ𗓼's story and how it highlighted this economic vulnerability?
Right.
If you're constantly struggling to just make ends meet,
Yeah.
it's really hard to prioritize anything else.
And we know that that financial pressure can make people more susceptible to exploitation.
Absolutely.
So how does TATANKA address that?
Well, for one, they make sure that everyone is paid fairly.
Okay.
They're really adamant about equitable compensation, making sure that transgender artists aren't being undervalued for their work, but they're also thinking more long-term.
Okay, what do you mean?
So they offer skill development programs.
Okay.
These programs help artists kind of grow professionally,
Right.
diversify their skill sets,
Okay.
and really build a more sustainable career.
So it's about investing in their future.
Right. It's not just about meeting the immediate need.
Right.
It's about empowerment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine that visibility plays a huge role in that too.
Oh, absolutely.
The article talked about how they provide platforms to help showcase their work.
Yeah, they host live performances,
Yeah.
support online streaming,
Okay.
organize cultural events, and they really promote intersectionality and diverse representation.
So trying to change the narrative
Yeah.
and how we see
Absolutely.
transgender artists.
It's about challenging stereotypes
Yeah.
and showcasing the incredible talent that exists in this community.
Yeah, and it seems like all of that has to be built on this foundation of safety,
Right.
especially with the statistics that we talked about earlier.
TATANKA takes this really seriously.
Okay.
I mean, every event that they hold is treated as a safe zone. They have clear codes of conduct, security personnel, trained staff
Right.
who are ready to intervene if needed.
It sounds like they're really prepared,
Absolutely.
which is reassuring, but what if something does happen?
They have a whole crisis response team
Okay.
that's ready to provide immediate support. Whether it's de-escalating a situation, providing medical attention, offering legal guidance,
Yeah.
just knowing that that's available takes a huge weight off these artists' shoulders.
So they can focus on their art,
They can
on their
feel-
performance,
Yeah.
rather than worrying about their safety.
Exactly. But there's one more piece to this puzzle,
Okay.
and it's probably the most ambitious part.
And that's the advocating for broader societal change.
Yes.
Right.
Because TATANKA realizes that real progress
Yeah.
requires more than just creating a haven
Right.
within their organization.
Yeah.
They partner with other transgender rights groups
Okay.
to advocate for systemic change.
Like anti-discrimination laws,
Absolutely.
workplace protections,
Yeah.
policies that really support
Yeah.
transgender people.
They're leveraging their influence to change the whole playing field.
It's not just about helping the individual artists.
Right.
It's about creating a world where those artists can actually thrive.
Absolutely. Now, before we move on,
Okay.
I think it's really important to touch on this concept of intersectionality,
Yeah.
which the article highlights.
Yeah, that's crucial.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that people don't just experience like one form of oppression in isolation.
Right.
Transgender artists, particularly those from marginalized communities, face a really unique set of challenges.
Yeah, so it's not just about being transgender.
Right.
It's how that intersects with their race, their class, their sexual orientation, their ability.
TATANKA acknowledges this.
Yeah.
And they try to tailor their programs to address those specific needs.
It's about true inclusivity.
Yeah. They want to make sure that nobody is left behind.
We've covered so much here.
We have.
I mean, it's really inspiring to see an organization that is tackling these complex issues so thoughtfully.
It really is. I mean, they've created this really comprehensive model.
Yeah.
That addresses everything from like the basic needs to long-term empowerment.
But the question is, what does this mean for you, the listener?
Right.
How can we apply these principles to our own lives and our own work?
That's what we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
We've spent this deep dive really unpacking all this incredible work that TATANKA is doing to support transgender artists.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, what can we learn from their model? Is this something that can be applied to other fields too?
I think that's the beauty of what they've built.
Yeah.
You know, while they're focused on transgender artists, the principles that they've used can absolutely be applied to any group that's facing these kinds of systemic barriers.
So it's not just about the entertainment industry specifically.
Right.
It's about those root causes of oppression.
Exactly. And remember how we were talking about intersectionality, whether it's, you know, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism.
Right.
All of these things often work together to create a system that benefits certain people at the expense of others.
And it seems like TATANKA is really trying to push against that.
Yeah.
With their, you know, focus on education and tangible support and actually...
It's about dismantling these systems, not just treating the symptoms.
And I think it's interesting, you know, you're listening to this deep dive because you're interested in this and you want to learn more.
And that's the first step.
So awareness is a big part of it.
Absolutely. You know, educating yourself about these challenges is really important, but knowledge alone isn't enough.
Right.
We need to be able to translate that understanding into action.
So let's get practical. What can people actually do?
Right.
Even if they're not, you know, involved in the entertainment industry?
Well, I think it starts with looking at yourself.
Okay.
You know, examining your own biases.
Right.
And how they might be impacting your interactions with other people.
So self-reflection.
Yeah, being open to learning from other perspectives.
But what about actual tangible things that people can do?
Well, think about your own sphere of influence.
Okay.
Are you a teacher?
Yeah.
Create a classroom where every student feels safe and respected.
Right.
Regardless of their gender identity or expression. Are you a doctor? Make sure you're really educated about the needs of transgender patients. And advocate for their rights within the medical system.
And if you're a business owner?
Put policies in place that protect transgender employees from discrimination.
Okay.
And cultivate a workplace where everyone feels valued.
Right. And supported.
Yeah. And it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
Speak out against injustice when you see it.
Yeah.
Support organizations that are fighting for equality.
And I think it's important to remember that it's not always about the big gestures.
Right.
It's about those small choices that we make every day.
Yeah, those everyday actions.
That can all add up.
Absolutely.
To create change.
You know, challenge those transphobic jokes or comments. Correct misinformation when you use inclusive language.
It's about creating that culture of respect.
Exactly. One interaction at a time.
Yeah, it's about really shifting those societal norms that perpetuate this discrimination.
And remember, it's not just about helping transgender people.
Right.
It's about recognizing that they are inherently worthy.
Yeah.
And fighting for a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Well, this deep dive has been so eye-opening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's inspiring to see organizations like TATANKA leading the way.
Yeah.
And it's empowering to know that we can all play a role in making a difference.
It's been great to unpack all this with you.
Yeah.
We hope you'll continue to learn and question and to challenge the status quo.
Because ultimately, change starts with us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.